Hi. So today's video, I'm still trying to figure out what to call it because I don't know. Is it punishment? Is it communication? Learning to communicate your boundaries? I don't know. We'll see. There might be some noise around. Sorry, just people being people everywhere. Yeah. Today when I was in the shower, I started thinking about how punishment has played a role in how we relate with each other. Go with me. Um, you know how when you were growing up, if you grew up in Kenyan culture, it was these are the rules, and if you step out of line, you get punished. We didn't really understand what the rules were about. At least I know I didn't. It was just these are the rules, you follow them. To be a good person, you do this. And it wasn't a thing where we understood, oh, I do this so that I don't do that. Sometimes it was, but very rarely. It was more about just being, in line. So, in the same way, I feel, and we'd be punished, and it would be like the things that baffle me are things like, do you remember how in primary school, like you'd get beaten by the teacher because you've gotten answers wrong? And to me now, I'm just like, that's so crazy because you're being punished for not understanding a concept. And how does punishment help you understand? It doesn't help you in any way. It's like then you're putting in a mindset that if I don't understand something, then I'm wrong. Or like, that's for me it doesn't make sense because shouldn't there be then just more explanation? Like could maybe it's the way I understand things is different. Like from like understanding things is not something that I can fully control. It's like I understand it or I don't. I can repeat it until I get it. But of course, like given our system, it wasn't really about understanding stuff. It was just about cramming information. So you're supposed to know this stuff. You're supposed to know it. So um, the reason why I feel like punishment ties into relationships, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is how sometimes we are with each other when we cross each other's boundaries. Is almost like it's not almost like we punish each other. I don't know if you've done this before. I know I have, and I've had it done to me, where you're in a relationship of any kind with a person and you cross their boundaries, and sometimes a lot of the times it's not even like knowingly, like, or if you're doing it, maybe you know that this is going to cross the boundaries, but there's a reason because there's a reason why you're doing this. So you cross this person's boundaries and they get mad at you and they stop talking to you, or they completely shut down, silent treatment. you know it's just, you've upset me, shut down. And while I do believe that in some instances, especially when it comes to things like abuse, of course, no contact or shutting down that relationship is the best course of action. But when it comes to just disagreements that are not of the abusive nature, then shutting down is not necessarily the best or the healthiest way to deal with things. Because this is the thing, we're all human and we're all bound to upset each other and cross each other's boundaries, step on each other's toes, ruffle each other's feathers. So by you shutting down, you're not helping this person grow and understand, first of all, what it is that they did, why it affects you the way that it does. And you're not giving also yourselves an opportunity to grow through this conflict, because conflict is a part of being human. And when two people are coming from two different backgrounds, relating in two different ways, expressing themselves in two different ways, that's finding middle ground with each other can take a bit of time, and it's gonna probably bring up a lot of conflict because you see things a certain way, you see it through the lens of your experience, and the other person sees it through the lens of their experience. And so most likely you're going to butt heads, and it doesn't help to not allow for understanding to come out of that, specifically in relationships that are intimate, like friendships, relationships of the romantic kind. Sometimes even, you see, the interesting thing is, even with siblings, you have grown up in the same way, the same background, you've been raised by the same people, but still you find that you're not seeing things from the same perspective. So imagine people out there who have come from different families and different economic backgrounds and schools and churches and mosques, and like all that information that makes a person is so different. Like, imagine trying to bring two people together. Of course there's going to be conflict. So I think I had this really interesting insight a while ago. I had conflict with a person, and it was actually part of the inspiration for this video, because how it was dealt with was they shut down completely. And when I was meditating about it, because it really, really hurt me so much, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And first of all, that was a sign for me, because I realized that I was triggered by this because it brought up other issues that didn't even have anything to do with this person, but that's a story for another day. So when I was praying about it, when I was meditating on it, speaking to Toti about it, I got this vision of me and this person face to face, and we're talking, but instead of seeing each other's faces, we are seeing our own faces. If that makes any sense. So like, my face is here, and instead of me seeing the person's face, my like, how do I put this? Another version of my face, another version of my face is looking back at me. And so for me, what I understood by that was, I'm not seeing the person clearly, and they are not seeing me clearly. What we are seeing is through our own lenses. So my behavior is, they're understanding it through their own perspective, and they're seeing an intention with that behavior through their own perspective, from their own history. And same for me, I'm seeing their behavior through my own perspective, from my own history. And so when you come at each other like that, then there's no way you're really going to understand each other. And that's why it's so important to learn how to communicate within conflict, because you have to know how to, and this won't work with everybody, because it has to be two of you doing this. If one of you, I mean, it can be one of you, but it still won't be as effective. You have to learn how to allow for a different perspective and really understand where somebody is coming from. And that takes time, and it takes a lot of trust, because we have certain ideas. If you speak to me this way, then that means that you're disrespecting me. If you speak to me this way, that means that you don't value me. And the funny thing is, the person probably is coming from a different perspective where they don't see it that way, where speaking to you a certain way doesn't really mean anything. It's just how they're talking. But then you can't see it because you're seeing it through the lens of your experience. So you have to learn how to let down your guard. And again, I don't think that this can happen with everybody. It would be wonderful if it could. And for me, I feel like that's why also the relationships that I'm investing in are way, like, I feel like I have way less friends now, just because the depth of how I want to interact with people is different. I want to be able to invest myself in my relationships, at least the ones that are close to me. I want to be able to invest myself in relationships like that, where we create a safe space where we can be able to understand each other's intentions, and that takes a lot of time and energy. But yeah, it's about understanding that I remember I was in a relationship once. Sorry, my mind is all over the place, as usual. I was in a relationship with this person, and we had, oh gosh, we used to fight. Whew, we used to fight. And so in dealing with each other, because conflict, it can get really tiring, but then we at least had the presence of mind to understand that our intention is never to hurt each other. The problem is not each other. The problem is the conflict. So if we are on the same side trying to understand what the conflict is, then that is of benefit, rather than seeing each other as enemies. So I remember having to stop in the middle of fights and be like, please remember that I love you. Please remember that I love you. Because sometimes we get into a space where we think that a person, their intentions are to hurt us, and that that is the farthest from the truth. And when we feel that way, when we feel that we are being attacked or that this person is coming to hurt us, then immediately our impulse is self-protection and defense, which when you're trying to communicate with each other, when you're trying to resolve conflict, can never work. Because if you put your guards up, then you can't reach each other. It's just going to be a war now. You're shooting at each other behind your defenses. It doesn't really work. Or one of you withdraws and you can't deal with a conflict, and that's the end of that. Whereas if we are able to come into a space of openness and trust and vulnerability and really be able to communicate with each other the truth of what we're feeling, then that would be so much more enriching for the relationship. And it is about being in relationships and building trust with people, but it's also about trusting your own feelings as well, and being okay with your feelings, which is also a really it's a journey for most people, because being okay with your feelings is something, especially when you're raised in an environment where you're not allowed to express your feelings, where it was basically, this is what you're supposed to do, you're never supposed to talk back, you're never supposed to feel any different, it's like you follow the rules and that's that. So becoming comfortable with your own emotions means being able to sit with them. And sometimes even, I remember one of the things that I used to struggle with was I used to feel like I'm being so petty, or like I'm being so unreasonable by feeling the things that I'm feeling. And these days I've allowed myself, even if it sounds stupid, even if it sounds like the most childish thing in the world, I'm going to honor the feelings. And sometimes I won't even have to communicate it with the person. I'll just sit with it and be like, wow, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling neglected by what this person is doing, and so let me just sit with this and be okay with my feelings and understand that it's just a passing cloud. But if you're constantly shoving your feelings aside and not acknowledging them, then another thing that can create, by the way, is not even understanding your boundaries fully, because you don't trust yourself enough. So you feel like someone is crossing your boundaries, but because you feel like you're just irrational, you'll be like, no, that's just me, being ridiculous or being crazy. How many times have you told a friend, in fact, I remember there was a tweet about this a few weeks ago, and someone was saying, like, you don't know how bad someone has treated you until you tell your friends the story and they react and you're like, oh yeah, okay. And that has happened to me before, where I'm like, this is upsetting me, but maybe I'm being unreasonable. Like, I brushed it aside and I'm like, no, it's just me and my sensitivity. It's just me being ridiculous. Then I tell my friends the story, and even though I'm telling them, it's like, I know, like, I overreacted, and my friends are like, the fuck? What are you talking about? What did she say? Like, it's so clear that boundaries were crossed. And then you're like, oh yeah, really? Yeah, because that's how I was feeling, validation from people. And I mean, sometimes it is true that you can be irrational or, oversensitive, whatever that is, because I don't know what the measure of sensitivity is that you're being oversensitive. But the thing is, if you're feeling it, it's valid. And that's the truth. Wherever it comes from, however it's presented, like, if you're feeling it, it is there and it needs to be acknowledged so that you can understand it and ask it, like, what's this about? Where have you come from? What has triggered you? And sit with it and understand it. And then see, maybe you do seem like you're overreacting, but maybe it's a really sensitive place for you. And that's okay. It's not bad to be sensitive. It's not bad to have certain areas where you need a little more care and a little more gentleness. And in fact, when we allow ourselves to fully feel the feelings and understand where they come from, then we're able to see the places of us that need healing. And we're able to communicate that with the people who love us. Like, yeah, I know that you like to make jokes about big butts, but I'm very sensitive about my big butt. Okay, that's not true, but I'm giving an example. But I'm sensitive about my big butt. So when you say stuff like that, it makes me feel this way, or I feel fat, or like whatever it is, whatever triggers come for you, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong, because all of us come with our own pain and our own past. So I'm pretty sure that the people who love you will want to make sure that they're not making you uncomfortable or hurting you in any way. And if they make fun of it and they're like, you're just being ridiculous, then those are not the people for you. Trust. And that's fine also. They don't have to be. So I feel like me, I'm just amazed sometimes that you guys really watch these videos, because I ramble a lot and I feel like I'm all over the place, but I'm so glad that you do. Anyway, so yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said what I wanted to say, and I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for watching, for liking, for sharing, for being here. Please feel free to comment and follow me on social media, Tarure Gatere, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I will see you in the next video. I'm sending you so much love, and please remember, above everybody else, you deserve your own unconditional love and acceptance. Bye.